Welcome back. Well, today is Wednesday, June the 8th. We are officially well into summer. So we're a few days into summer here. And we've got all the movies are starting to come out, all the big Hollywood blockbusters. Maverick just came out. Everybody's all over social media talking about how great this movie is. I've not seen it yet. I can't wait to see it. Top Gun was a huge part of my life growing up in the 80s. So I'm pretty excited to see what they've done with this. I've seen a lot of great reviews. There's a lot of great video channels out there, like the Critical Drinker, gives his kind of take on this movie. So, and I'll put a link to his channel down below in the comments. But we're heading into movie season, and I've been watching a lot of movies recently, things that I probably would have never seen before, just because of their genre. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So as we're getting ready to head into all the big summer movies, what are things that you would or would not see because of their genre? Meaning like this is a horror movie, this is an action movie, this is a drama movie. And I think that I've gone into this deep dive of entertainment and movies over the last 3 years. Right? Especially during the pandemic when we were all stuck at home and everybody was watching everything on Netflix and Hulu and everywhere else. And my eyes were awoken to a lot of movies that I never would have seen before because they're not a genre that I follow. I typically like more drama, intrigue, thriller. And I started thinking about how some of these movies are miscategorized. Just like music, some music is miscategorized. So does that stop people from listening or seeing something because it's not something that they would normally do? And one of the movies I wanted to talk about that I just recently saw, it's a few years old, is Midsommar. This is a wonderful Ari Aster movie. It gets mixed reviews. Some people think it's the worst movie they've ever seen. To me, it's probably one of the greatest movies that I've ever seen. I like movies where at the end, I still kind of don't know what's happening. Who's the bad guy? Who's the protagonist? Who's the antagonist? And like Memento, I've seen that movie probably 30 times, and every time I watch it, there's something like, oh, I didn't catch that the first 29 times. And I think to me that's a well done movie, and because then it sparks conversation. Like there used to be a thing where people had book clubs. A bunch of people would read a book, then they'd sit around and talk about what they thought the meaning was. Back in school, we did book reports. And when I see some of these movies that spark conversation, not controversy, conversation, then I'm like, that's a well done movie. If this many people are discussing it, how did it impact them? How do they feel about it? Ryan Hollinger, who's another YouTuber, he does a magnificent job deconstructing a lot of these films. And again, I'll put a link to his channel and like his take on Midsommar, because I think it's a wonderful thought process where he kind of deconstructs this film. But I think it's mislabeled. Midsommar, whenever you do a Google search and you search for this, the first thing that comes up is it's a 2019 film. It's rated R, and it is a horror thriller. I've seen this movie 3 times in the last, week and a half. Just because, like, something like this where I'm like, okay, guys, I'm watching it at home. Did I get up and walk away and miss something? Or, what was this scene that I don't completely understand? So I'll watch it again. I won't rewind it. I start all over because maybe there's an important piece that will explain, this thing that I don't understand. So, but with that, I don't see where this movie is a horror film. When I think of horror, I think of like Freddy Krueger, all the Friday the 13th movies, Halloween. That is a traditional, to me, this is just my opinion, to me, a traditional horror film. So you have the antagonist, is a main character. So it's Jason or Freddy or Michael Myers, is just randomly killing people for no reason. At the end of the day, after the movie, there's no story. There's no hidden message. It's not a commentary on society or anything like that. It's just kind of mindless entertainment of killing. So to me, like that would be a horror film. But then I look at like Aliens, which is listed as, let's see here, bear with me. It's what I would have considered just to be a straight up sci-fi movie is a sci-fi horror. And I don't see where the horror in that movie is. What? Because a little alien pops out of some dude's chest, and then you have an alien that's killing people, but it's not graphic like a horror, or like, Freddy's like, there's blood everywhere. Jason's chopping people's limbs off, the amount of horror that's in Alien or Midsommar or some of these other movies is there's worse horror or even gore in Saving Private Ryan. And that's just listed as a war drama. So I just wonder, like, are you missing out on, a certain amount of entertainment because how it's listed or promoted under its specific genre? Take it a step further. If Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton sing Islands in the Stream, which was like a late 70s, early 80s kind of pop song, I still call that country music. It's two country artists singing a song, whether you want to break down whether that song is pop or because it made it to like the top 40 or whatever, that's fine. I still consider it country. It's two country artists singing that song. So to me, that song still falls under country for me. So, and again, like, are you as critical over these things as I am, where you kind of put things in certain little areas and you categorize them a certain way? Because I just think that so many people would watch more of these movies if they looked at them as being like a thriller instead of a horror, like Psycho. The whole movie, for anybody who's ever seen Psycho, or for the people who've not seen Psycho, the killing is 2% of the movie. It's all about a girl who stole money from her boss and went on the run, and people are looking for her. That's the crux of the movie. So the whole shower scene, where Norman Bates, kills the woman, and then he's got to kill a few other people to cover up that murder. That's like 1 to 2% of the movie. So why would that be a horror film? That's more of a drama, more of a thriller, like a whodunit. And so I would just categorize that as a drama. You can watch Law and Order and see more gore, and that's just, listed as a drama show. So I wonder at the end of the day, how many of these movies get mislabeled? Because to me, Alien would just be a sci-fi film, sci-fi fantasy, maybe, like movies like Legend, Dark Crystal, these are all to me like kind of fantasy. Star Wars would be a sci-fi fantasy. But when I see some of these other films, like Hostel is listed as a horror thriller. Now, to me, I mean, Eli Roth, anything that he does, I think would just be gore. I'm not a big fan of his movies. I appreciate him. I like him. But to me, like, those movies were like Hostel and Saw, all the Saw franchise, those would be gore. I wouldn't even put those under horror, because in the Hostel movies, there's several antagonists. There's not just one bad guy. And even in the Saw movies, where Jigsaw is kind of the antagonist, although, he's not really killing anybody, his devices are killing people. So again, it's just like, would you watch some of these movies if they had a different listing? Because I think, some of Ari Aster's movies, who's done Midsommar and Hereditary, are two amazing thrillers, like thriller drama to me. Yeah, is there some violence? Is there some death in there? But not any more or less than you would see on regular television today. Most of the stuff that they put out on the Sci-Fi Channel and things. So this is not a commentary on what should be rated or what should not be rated. I'm just saying I think some of these movies are mislabeled, as far as what their genre is. Because I would have seen these movies way before this, because I'm just not a big horror fan. And I don't think the story of Midsommar is a horror film. I think it is a drama. You're following these people on a journey, and they stumble upon a culture that they're not familiar with and their rituals. And so to me, that's just, it's almost like a National Geographic documentary, with some violence, inside of it. But to that point, do you kind of see what I'm saying? These I thought were very well produced. There was amazing acting. I'm not going to like show clips or any of this stuff. I'll send you. I'll put in links to some of the people that do this thing for a living. But I just wanted to say that I think that so many people miss things in life. You might miss a cuisine because you don't like that kind of food because whatever the thing is, you think, oh, it's too spicy or something, so you're never going to eat at that kind of restaurant. But what are you missing there? Maybe they have an entree at this restaurant that has something that you would love that's not spicy. So just those kind of things. So at the end of the day, are so many of these movies mislabeled? And you would watch these things if they were something else, because Jurassic Park is listed as a sci-fi action film. I don't know where any part of this is sci-fi. Fantasy, so it'd be action fantasy to me. It's more action, because the violence, again, it doesn't say horror. Well, these dinosaurs are eating people, so why does that not have horror? And I don't think it should. I think it just should be action. It's almost like an adventure park ride when you're watching these Jurassic Park movies. So action fantasy. The fantasy is that, yeah, we're not making new dinosaurs. We're not finding, pieces of amber with DNA and making these things. That's the fantasy part, right? Like Star Wars is a sci-fi fantasy. The science fiction, science, outer space, things like that. So I don't see how sci-fi has anything to do with Jurassic Park. Action fantasy, maybe even thriller or drama or something like that. But so I just wonder, because there is a lot of, on this deep dive that I'm on, some films that I think, were listed just as like action or even drama, that I'm like, oh no, this is gore. I mean, this is extreme violence. But then like The House that Jack Built. So, on this deep dive, whenever you're looking up something, you'll Google or something will always say like, hey, if you liked this, you'll probably like this. And the House that Jack Built, to me, is another amazing movie. It's kind of long. It's a little hard to get through in one sitting. But to me, like, this was not a horror film. Yes, he is the typical, antagonist, and that he is a serial killer. But like the deeper message, so like this is one of those movies, these artsy art house kind of films, where there's an underlying message, and you kind of have to watch the whole thing to understand it. But it takes you somewhere, and it makes you think. So it's very provocative in the way it does it. But I would again just say like this is a thriller, drama, because everything that you see in this movie, as far as the depiction of death, is no different than what you would see on Law and Order. So I'm kind of using Law and Order as my scale. When you see violence and blood on police shows or law shows. So if that's just considered drama, then these movies should be considered drama, and even thriller. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? I mean, I feel like I could ramble on about this stuff forever, but I just think that so many people are missing opportunities to watch wonderful art, and wonderful films and cinematography and story and acting. A lot of these movies, the acting is just absolutely unbelievable. Uh, in Midsommar, some of the people that are in there, Jack Rayner and Florence Pugh, their acting is amazing. And these are young, talented actors. To watch Hereditary and see Gabriel Byrne again, in a really great movie, and Toni Collette. Toni Collette really steals this whole movie. Just her facial expressions and contortions to show disbelief and horror and shock is just amazing to see. I can't emphasize enough about how wonderful she is and everything that she's ever been in. She's one of these just, I don't know how she's not an A-list actress. She's just phenomenal. But I think Ari Aster is an amazing director. So I've watched a few other of his movies, and I'm kind of just happy that I've stumbled upon these things, because I watch a lot of YouTube review channels where people review movies, and then there's some art students that talk about like the cinematography or the sound and lighting, and they do really good deep dives into these. But like I said, I think Ryan does a really fantastic job. So I'll put a link to his channel because he does a really wonderful, explanation of some of the why things are done the way that they are as far as cinematography and plot lines and stuff. But just I know that we're getting into that time where it's all the big blockbusters are starting to hit the cinema, and I still have not seen any really good movies in the last few years that had a really great story that sparked conversation. It's just kind of mindless entertainment. So I'm kind of anticipating going to see the new Top Gun movie, because it's one of these where everybody's online talking about how much they loved it. And one of my friends on Facebook said that they went to a cinema where the seats actually move, and like you get sprayed with water and air, so it's almost an immersive experience. So I'm going to try to see if I can go to that cinema and watch that film. But what are your thoughts? Leave me a comment down below. Are there movies that like you've watched and thought, I didn't want to watch that movie, but I did, and boy, it was kind of like completely misrepresented. I would have watched this movie. Or the other way around, was something sold to you as it was kind of tame, and you're like, oh, I've had nightmares after watching this. Like I literally had to go get counseling, after watching that movie, because you thought it was just a thriller or a drama, and it was more gore than anything. That's kind of how I felt after watching Saving Private Ryan. I mean, just the Omaha Beach scenes alone, the violence, and I get it, right? They're showing that was the fog of war and the horror of war and the destruction of war. But why is that any different than an Alien, right? Because it's just film, it's just art. So it's not like it was a documentary. They had actors, all of that's all the blood and the guts and all that stuff. And Saving Private Ryan or any of these other things is literally just, practical effects, or CGI, in a lot of the movies today. So it's not real, it's just art. So I don't know. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are there songs that you've listened to, where you're like, yeah, I would have thought this was more country versus pop, but more specifically movies, because I just think at the end of the day, Midsommar is a wonderful drama / thriller. I don't think it's anything more than that. What little bit of violence in there is overshadowed by the amazing story and the whole kind of meaning of what it is. And I think it's more of a commentary on social media more than anything, and how we interact with people, with our friends on Facebook, and who do we trust and who do we not trust? People that we think are our friends might not always be what they seem. So watch some of these movies. I would definitely recommend Midsommar, and then, like I said, Hereditary, and then The House that Jack Built. If you're into that kind of thing, it might be disturbing for some people, but like I said, I think everything in there is no different than what you would see on any episode of Law and Order or Law and Order SVU or, Criminal Minds or any of these other shows. So if you can tolerate those, I'm sure you'll do well with The House that Jack Built. But leave me a comment. And again, if you've not, please hit the subscribe button. If you can, please hit the donate button. Anything that you can do helps me make videos and helps keep this channel going and growing. So hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you next time.